Okay. Sustainability, I think, can be pretty fairly called corporate social responsibility because when you think in a sustainable way, you're thinking about the responsibility you have to the assets that you're trying to sustain. So whether it's uh, physical assets such as lumber or plants or trees or even people. Um, I think you can see the dramatic parallel between the two. In order to have sustainability in a broad perspective, clearly the governments have got to become involved, and they are the ones that have to enact legislation that will take it out of the ethical domain and put it into the legal domain. So that's reasonably clear, and we have to understand that that's going to happen. But then, on a smaller basis, we have to become the Loraxes of the planet, looking after the assets that we are responsible for managing, and looking after them with the understanding that as we make each part of the business sustainable, it strengthens and solidifies the company itself. So basically, for us as managers, we have to attempt to be stewards and look at the company, as I said, from a sustainable perspective, and that has evolved into this concept of the triple bottom line. That means that companies are no longer reporting strictly on the basis of economic performance, which would be your P&L, your balance sheet, etc., everything that you're normally familiar with seeing from a company, especially if you want to buy their shares, to having a much broader report that is written and presented each year along with the economic report. And that report now includes two other components besides the economic one. One is the social equity component, where we talk about how we relate to our customers, how are we meeting their needs, how are we relating to our employees, how are we meeting their needs, how are we nourishing them. And then we have to look at the metrics to measure those things. How much they spend, their customers. What's the satisfaction that they have? If we're looking at our employees, how long do we retain an employee? What's the turnover rate? Things of that sort. What is the plant efficiency like? All of those things can measure the effectiveness of our management of our partners in the business. And finally, we will have this environmental equity, which will deal with the assets we use to bring our product to the market. So that could be wood, steel, oil, whatever it may be. And now, the report that comes from such a company with a triple bottom line exposes the investor to a much more intimate view of the future of that company. Because clearly, although the company may be economically successful, so the share value is great, if the turnover rate is enormous, something's going wrong and it's dangerous for the company. Especially, let's just say, for example, if the turnover rate is high and it's a pharmaceutical company, sorry. Or let's say it's a technology company. If the turnover is high, that means people are coming and going. There's something going wrong in the way we're managing them, because this is talent that we're losing in our business. And that's clearly evident in a triple bottom line report. And in fact, there are entire groups of stocks that only report that way. Now, the marketplace hasn't yet caught up, but if you want to be ahead of the marketplace and you want to invest in those companies that are driving towards sustainability, here's an easy way to find them. You just have to check and see how they're reporting. There is an amazing video that's available on YouTube. It's called The Story of Stuff. So I'm going to suggest that we watch it. But just to give you a brief summary, because it relates to this subject, The Story of Stuff takes a look at how product gets from its origin point into your home and then back to its origin point. Because ultimately, the tree that's cut down in the Amazon forest, that becomes your textbook, that gets thrown into the garbage after you finish the course, and then decomposes and returns to the earth as dirt, and then maybe there's a tree that's planted in that dirt, and we have another tree. That's a cycle. Everything on the planet goes through that cycle. Human beings don't live forever. We go through that cycle. All plants, all animals, all materials go through that cycle, and you can even argue that businesses go through that cycle. So the Story of Stuff looks at what's going on in each one of those stages. And you can see from the video that the Story of Stuff is trying to show you a very critical component, and that is that we are managing our businesses and our production in a way that is totally irresponsible and wasteful. And since that's the standard at this point, there is an enormous danger that within the next 30 or 40 years, unless alternative things are done, we will start to run out of resources. There are, statistical measures for how much wood is left on the planet. We know how much oil is left on the planet. It's not a giant secret. So you can just do a little bit of mathematics and calculate how much oil do we use in a year? How much oil is left? Just divide the two into each other, and it'll tell you how many years there are. Just that simple. And there is a complicating factor which we're going to talk about in a few moments. But just understanding that, so we know that we're not doing a good job. And one of the reasons for including this discussion in this class is to awaken in students the understanding that they can do better, that they can plan and they can deal with the environment in a way that will make their businesses far more sustainable and therefore far more successful. So the Story of Stuff, and there's actually 2 videos that they have on that, is the story of moving the yardsticks so that we become totally sustainable economies. Now, there is a lot of good things that are happening to help us do that. Things like 3D printing, localization, all of those things are going to help move towards that goal, but it still will need a management agreement that's where we want to be. So now let me just explain to you 2 significant little bits of information that are going to profoundly affect our world. Everything that we have as statistics right now is based on essentially the Western economy and the European economy, because the rest of the world has been essentially in lockdown since forever, except for the last 20 years, when 2 economies have begun to emerge that are individually twice as big as the Western economies, and when you put them together, 400% greater. These 2 economies are China and India. China has a specific strategic objective to build itself into a consumer nation. And it has been doing that by building itself economically as a worldwide supplier of many things. All generic drugs come out of either China or India, who is the other gigantic economy. 1.4 billion people, I believe, in India. So that's where all those drugs come from. All kinds of stuff that we buy that is all made in China. So China is dragging itself that way. New York Times had a article a couple of years ago, specifically quoting the Chinese Minister of Trade, saying that they are taking 250,000 people a year from the rural environments and moving them into the cities for one specific purpose: to create consumers. Why? Because they understand that a consumer economy is a successful economy because it nurtures growth. And growth means money. As long as you are an agricultural economy, all of your wealth is based on how many corn plants you have, or how much oil you can pull out of the ground. And once the oil is gone or the corn is eaten up, that's the end of you. But if you're a consumer-based economy, you can nurture yourself. So it's a much wiser strategy, and that's why China has chosen it. And all of the things that they're doing are designed to build that economy. Similarly with India. India is attempting again to drag itself out from being a rural economy to being an international consumer economy. Yes, there's 1.5 billion people in China, 1.4 billion in India, so almost 3 billion people in those two countries alone. We only have about 7 billion on the planet. So all the rest of the planet is 3 billion. And now if you take Africa out and just look at Europe and America, well, America is 450 million, and Europe is probably the same thing. So less than 1 billion people in the current economy. Imagine a 300% increase in demand as these economies come online. You won't be able to get an iPhone for $1,000. It'll be 20,000. It'll be the price of a car, unless different technologies are used. If we don't grow the technologies, we're not going to be able to sustain the demand that people are going to put on our economies. There's going to just be an enormous pressure on the resources. There's only so much material that's available to make batteries, to make the glass casings. There's just a limit, so we have to recognize that. The challenge, therefore, is to deal with that issue. This is why I say that this class on sustainability is the greatest opportunity that each one of you has. Because the answers that you come up with will change the world and will make you enormously wealthy. I'll give you just one little example. I believe that it's Norway. I believe that it's Norway that has developed a technology that allows them to cleanly burn garbage and turn it into enough energy to light up Oslo, which I believe is their capital city. I apologize if I'm getting the city and the country wrong. That garbage would have normally been buried. Toronto takes its garbage and ships it to Detroit because they're desperate for the money. Why aren't we using that technology here? Even if we can just power the city core of Toronto, it reduces the dependency on nuclear electricity by that amount. And it's far more efficient. Why aren't we doing that? I don't have the answers. I just know that technology exists. There's something else that's called synthetic biology. So synthetic biology, it's already here. And it is a technology that gives you food and other things that we're using in society by using molecular biology and synthetic materials to build with each other. So for example, in 3D printing, which uses some of this material, you can actually build structures that are stronger than steel beams that can be used in construction. And the material to make these structures grow. So you can keep growing them and making them and growing them and making them. There's no end. To me, that is enormously exciting. So synthetic biology, 3D printing, all of this new technology, I think, provides us with enormous opportunity down the road, and it should be exciting for all of you. I mentioned 3D printing. You can, again, TED Talks, by the way, has a lot of information on this. But you can be printing stuff in your home, clothes, shoes. You just pay for the program, and you have the materials there. So we don't need the packaging. We don't need Amazon to ship it. We don't have to waste tons of oil on that gasoline and everything to go get it. I mean, it's so good on so many different levels. It's amazing. So I think if you think about this new frontier, this new sustainable world that to me is very exciting, if you think about delivery services, 3D software, recycling facilities, batteries, you can see enormous opportunities. And I really hope that you leave this course thinking and believing that you can make a difference by making your company sustainable. Thank you.